When it comes to session-based multiplayer games, we know players want a seamless and lag-free experience as if they're playing right next to each other in the same room, and that puts technology to the test. There's hardware, bandwidth, support are just some of the cost variables to add up, and in this episode, we're going to discuss how Amazon GameLift can help your dev team balance out that equation. Hey y'all, John Diaz, technical designer for the Game Tech team here. We know players demand a tight experience when it comes to this session-based multiplayer gaming, and that can put a tremendous load on your team in terms of manpower and dollars. We've seen teams use Amazon GameLift with AutoScaling and Spot instances to save up to 70% on compute costs when you compare that to bare metal. However, we know each game comes with its own set of unique circumstances, so we wanted to give you a way to figure out if the numbers make sense for your game's target audience. Come check out how the AWS True Cost of Ownership calculator can help with that. So we come on in here to the AWS TCO calculator. This is the tool that we set up for you to compare costs depending on your setup. I'll put a link to it in the description below. So let's just come down here and we'll launch the calculator. And you have a bunch of different options you can configure. You can configure what currency you're worried about, the type of environment we're comparing against. For us, that's going to be co-location. And we're going to go ahead and put that in our US East North Virginia region. We'll leave workload as general. Now let's go configure our virtual servers. The optimal settings for our game are going to require a non-DB server type. The app name here is optional, so we can leave that blank. And we'll want, let's say, 2,500 instances to handle our load. We'll need a dual core processor running with 3 gigs of memory on a VMware hypervisor, and we're choosing Linux as our operating system. Storage, we can leave it as is, and let's go ahead and calculate this. Okay, and so this is what it gives us. Factoring in 3 years of putting all that work together, you're looking at about $4.5 million. Small drop in the bucket. I have a spreadsheet that I put together for us to keep track of all these costs. Okay, so I'm just gonna plug that 4.5 million into our co-location costs. And if you break that up over 36 months, it's roughly about 126K a month. Now I want to show you what this looks like on Amazon GameLift. So to do that, we can just come on over to our GameLift website. I'll also put a link to that in the video description. And we can click on pricing. And here we can start getting some numbers for comparison. So if we look at a comparable setup to our 3 gig dual core processor, we're looking at this C4 large down here. And the number we get here for on demand is about 13 cents an hour. So I'll go ahead and plug that guy into here. So roughly at about 13 cents an hour, if you multiply that by 24 hours in a day, you get your daily rate. And then let's say it's a 30-day month. So this is what it looks like for one instance over the course of a month. Let's say we multiply that by our 2,500 instances. We can see that running that on a managed dedicated server by Amazon GameLift, we're looking at about 229K. So compared to our 126 over co-location, a bit pricier. So the key difference here between on-demand and Spot is that on-demand is a reserved instance where you pay for what you use. Spot instances get you the same high-performance hardware as on-demand at a savings of up to 90%. That's because Spot offers access to spare AWS compute capacity, meaning prices fluctuate based on supply and demand, but they'll never exceed on-demand prices. Spot instances may be interrupted when AWS needs that capacity back, but we've got you covered with FleetIQ. What FleetIQ does is that it automatically places your sessions on the best server based on player latencies, instance prices, and Spot interruption rates. So let's go and compare our Spot instance prices. So let's go back to our website here, and if you scroll a bit lower, you can see your Spot pricing. And again, make sure that we're in the same region, so we're comparing apples to apples. And you come down here and we want our C4 large. And so you can see that the price is very different. You're paying less than 4 cents. So let's go plug that in here. Now, here's where we can start seeing a good size amount of savings. So you take that 3-4 cents, multiply that over the course of a day, multiply that over a course of the month, times the instances, and you're looking at a pretty substantial size savings when compared to co-location. But wait, there's more. We're making a huge assumption saying that our game is going to be getting hammered 24/7. And we all know that that's not the case. With auto-scaling, our instances will scale up or down to meet player demand. It's hard to know what player demand is going to look like, so we can have a safe buffer of 50%. And we can say that at peak, our game is going to be getting about 12 hours of play per day. When we say these numbers monthly spot with auto-scaling, they're only factoring in 365 hours. And so here we can see the numbers. Mine are working with 360 hours. I just halved the 720 hours in a month. And now we can see some pretty good savings with auto-scaling on top of Spot. You're gonna pay roughly around 30K, saving yourself about 75% of what you would pay versus paying for co-location. That is sitting there waiting for players to throttle this thing 24/7, and you don't need all that. It's worth noting that this doesn't factor in data transfer. I'll link to this website in the video description. So when you come here, you can just look for data transfer, and you can make sure that you're in the same region, and you can get a good sense of what these typically go for. All data coming in is free, and data coming out, these are some of the rates that you're looking at. So keep those in mind when you're doing your calculations. So don't take our word for it. Head on over to the calculator, plug in your own numbers, and see how those savings can go a long way towards helping your game succeed. If it makes sense, let us manage your game service for you. Thanks for watching.